So good evening, everybody. Show of hands, do we have anybody in Atlanta today? It was like 70 degrees out there today, this afternoon. Wasn't it a gorgeous day? So hopefully you had a chance to get out and get air, maybe break away from the screen for a little bit. Who's been on Zoom all day? Yeah, I feel your pain, so to speak. Perfectly honest, I Zoomed from 8 to noon and then had another phone call from 12:30 to about 1, and then another WebEx from 3 to 5, and here we are. So these are long days. So I'm going to just kick us off here. So welcome to this town hall. This is really meant to be a bit of an open-ended forum, if you will, just to maybe touch base and connect. We, the pre-health office, certainly miss having you all popping into our office from time to time, and hopefully maybe add some insights, answer some questions, and just kind of go from there. I will at some point, I have a few slides I want to go through at some point, and we can start there to get things going. But as we get started, I want to certainly thank Susan. I don't know if Susan hopped off for organizing this. Thank you, Susan. I know we have some of our peer mentors who are here. I have to say it's really tough to kind of see everybody because I've got a lot of little boxes. So if you're a peer mentor for us in the pre-health office, can you step forward and say hello, introduce yourself? You'll have to unmute yourself if, yeah, it is helpful to have cameras on so that we can at least.
Yeah, I can go. Can you hear me?
Sure.
My name is Nivetha. I'm a junior. I'm a human health major. And yeah.
Great, thank you, Nivetha.
Hi there, my name's Alex. I'm a peer mentor. I'm a junior. I'm an NBB and religion double major, and I'm applying this cycle.
Great, thanks, Alex.
Hi everyone, my name's Leanne. I'm a junior and I'm double majoring in MBB and music.
Thanks,
Hey
Leanne.
everyone. Sorry, my name is Nicole. I'm a junior and I'm majoring in biology and minoring in nutrition sciences.
Thanks, Nicole.
Hi, I'm Sean, also a junior, also a music double major with chemistry.
Thanks, Sean.
Next, I'm Robert. I'm a biology major and a QSS minor, also applying this cycle.
Thanks, Robert.
Guys, I'm Nathan. I'm a junior biology major and philosophy minor, and I'm also applying this cycle.
Thanks, Nathan.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm a senior peer mentor studying psychology and linguistics, also applying this cycle.
Thanks, Julie.
Hi, everyone. Oh,
sorry, Erin.
You're totally fine. You can go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Shivangi. I'm a senior studying NBB and minoring in Spanish, and I'm also applying this cycle.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Erin. I'm a senior. I'm applying this cycle and I'm studying biology and sociology.
Thanks, Erin.
Hi, I'm Landy. I'm a junior. I'm studying biology and minoring in Korean, and I'm also applying the cycle.
Thanks, Landy.
Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry, Rohini.
No, you can go.
My name is Sharice Thomas. I graduated last spring. I was a chemistry and Spanish double major on the pre-med track. I was also a peer mentor, and I'm planning on applying this cycle.
Good to see you again, Sharice.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohini. I graduated last fall and I was a bio and chem major.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Saeed. Senior peer mentor, majoring in chemistry and biology, and I'll be applying this upcoming cycle.
Great. Thanks, Saeed. Well, Is that everybody? That was, I'm so grateful you're all here. So let me go ahead and pull up my presentation and we'll show a few slides. Can everybody see slides? Show of nods. Okay, so really I just have a few slides. Certainly, again, wanted to welcome you all to this town hall, you know, for lack of anything better to call it, just a chance to meet a little bit. I will say that the one disclosure I have, certainly my lens through my experience, both personally and professionally, has been that my frame of reference is medical school admissions, but many of the things we talk about are pretty universal. And certainly I hope with that group of peer mentors, we might have some folks applying beyond just medical school. And certainly, you know, it's an interesting time, right? We are literally in the middle of a pandemic, hopefully maybe beyond the middle is what I'm hopeful for. And it's kind of interesting. I've been sort of reflecting a lot on things, but certainly things that relate to this pandemic. And whether you saw it or not, I'm not sure, but let's see if this pulls up. You know, this year, there's been a record number of applicants to medical school. And I don't know if that's seen in other of the health professions, but again, you know, my disclosure statement is, you know, I certainly pay attention to what's going on in the medical school, probably most acutely because I teach in the medical school, interview for the committee, and that's just where I embed myself. So I'm kind of curious. I'm going to sort of stop the screen there for a minute and just, I'm kind of curious. So what are people thinking about? And certainly those of you that introduce yourself as peer mentors that are in the process currently, I'm just kind of curious what people are hearing, if they're out there on the interview trail or in the interview chat box. Just kind of curious what people are hearing and what people are wondering about to get us started. And certainly you can direct questions to the chat box too. We'll try to kind of keep up with questions as they come. And yeah, maybe nobody's hearing anything, which is surprising. But you know, again, this is an opportunity to have some interaction.
I can kind of step forward here, Dr. Batisky. I think
Thanks,
one of the things that we're all hearing is it's a numbers game at the end of the day. And when people think about Fauci, and people call it the Fauci effect, right? People want a leg up more than ever. So I think as a student standpoint, people are wondering, what extra do I have to do? Or how do I stand out given the moment that a lot of people are suddenly having this interest due to the pandemic?
Sure. And we'll touch on that a little bit as I navigate through some slides related to a survey I recently put out. Yeah, as I've thought about it and read about it and wondered about it, you know, it's kind of interesting. And talked to a few people too. Clearly, we've always seen that there are more applicants than there are spots. That's really no surprise. And you know, as the number of schools have increased and the numbers of spots of class spots in each of these schools has risen, the numbers of applicants have continued to rise. Certainly in challenging times, people will often spend more time in school when the job market might be tight. And I think, you know, last spring and summer when many things were on lockdown and what it meant to be employed changed, I think that could certainly have contributed. But when you think about it, the application cycle for the current cycle we're in started really with the submissions to the AMCAS application last June. So it's just that may be part of it. I do think what else has contributed is things like this thought that maybe this is a year to consider that with delays in deadlines and a crazy sort of round of MCAT cancellations, and some schools were maybe changing deadlines, being a little more flexible with even having MCAT scores or not. People thought, well, maybe this is my chance. I'll go ahead and push myself forward. And then, this idea that there is job security in healthcare, I think has always been the case. But I think more apparent in the last several months has been that clearly we need more healthcare providers of all sorts, and medicine being one of those healthcare professions. Why not medicine? Nationwide, I think the average number nationwide was something about 18% for number of applications. I can say here at Emory, we saw about a 20% rise in applications over the year before. Now, I can't imagine that numbers like that are sustainable, year after year after year. So time will tell. But a lot of things certainly are likely contributing to that huge blip that we saw this year. Getting to some of the points Robert made, in many ways, I think that because that the world pivoted to educationally remote formats, because there were lockdowns in so many sectors of the world, that everybody has been very well aware that there's probably a never more compelling time for admissions offices to do true holistic review. Anybody that's heard me speak before, when we talk about interviews or when we're talking about composite letter, has probably heard me use that word holistic before. And I can say that from the time I applied to medical school, probably before that and certainly after that, there's always been that sort of sense that medical schools are looking for well-rounded people, people that have a knack for science, but also, a side of humanity, because you use that science in a humanistic way to deal with people. And so I think when you're reviewing files that might not have an MCAT score, or might be filled with a transcript that has online courses or remote courses, I think everybody is realizing that you have to really kind of look at the big picture, the whole package, and not take any one thing out of context. So I can say that standards haven't changed in the sense that medical still want good people who can tackle a busy science-based curriculum, but how they assess that is probably a little more creative than it was when before COVID, before things really started to change. My guess is most of you on this session never expected that you would have online coursework as part of your Emory transcript, right? And yet, even a year ago, last February, we didn't think we would be in this position either. I mean, I can still remember back in early to mid-March, I happened to have a new computer installed over at my desktop in the pre-health office. And the person from IT that was putting it together, we were just chit-chatting, and I said something about, how's your day been? And he was commenting that he was spending time getting prepared just in case the faculty needed to go to remote learning. And I just remember sort of saying, oh, really? Is that possible? He said, well, there's talk that, come spring break, things might be a little different around here. And lo and behold, that was sort of foretelling the future. So, that wasn't the plan at the beginning of last calendar year. And I think many of us hoped that we'd get through a semester, maybe this summer, maybe fall, and that here we are still doing things somewhat remotely, but also a bit of a hybrid. So I have to say in the med school, we have a bit of a hybrid model. We can come back to that if need be. Now, while I'm thinking about it, before I forget, I was curious as to how schools would look at things. And so I literally did put together a survey that I sent out to something like 160 medical schools. And I'm calling this my pandemic survey 2021. So I tried to keep it simple. Now I sent this out somewhere in the middle of December, early to mid-December 2020, knowing that that's, never is there an unbusy time, but certainly knowing that the holidays were looming, I knew that I was going to have to nudge some people. But I basically asked a few questions. So consider these questions for a student applying to a health professional school. And then I asked a series of questions, and we'll walk through those questions. So how important is it to get clinical experience? And you can sort of see here that people felt that that was extremely important because much of healthcare is clinically oriented. Now we break that down a little bit. You see, I only had 14 responses, but the vast majority of them, 64%, felt that clinical experience was extremely important. Well, what do we mean by clinical experience? And so I dug in a little deeper. How important is it to do shadowing? And here you sort of see a little different view. The largest number of people responded that it was moderately important. And just a few said extremely important. In fact, one person out of this 14 said extremely important. About half said moderately important. So I do know that there is still concern about I can't get shadowing hours in person because of restrictions related to COVID. And I guess the good news is it's not felt to be, by at least some people, all that extremely important. Here's another interesting question, because I know a lot of people sort of got pushed away from their labs. How important is it to do research? Here you see, again, the vast majority of answers said moderately important. If we look at the numbers, 8 out of 14, over half said moderately important. And really only one said extremely or very important. And even that was matched with even more people that said slightly important or not important at all. And I think we say over and over again in the pre-health office, research is not a requirement for plain old garden variety medical school. If you're looking at an MD PhD track or something related to a research career, that's a whole different matter. Just be reassured that not everybody's putting a lot of absolute stock in. Now, this is, I think, another side of this story. How important is it to do volunteer work? Clearly, the majority of people here say extremely important, 11 out of 14. And nobody said slightly important or not at all. So volunteerism is still really key. And then leadership, again, skewed toward very important, but, a range of answers, probably one of the more wider range of answers. And then I asked people to rank these 5 domains: clinical experience, shadowing, research, volunteer work, and leadership, as to, most important number 1 and least number 5. And what's kind of interesting is that clinical experience followed by volunteerism, I think sort of show that the red and green bars are as being most important. And shadowing, the purple bar, sort of shows up along the way, but in this group of people, it ended up being number 5 in rank order as the most. Now, I did ask people, suggest some meaningful experiences during this COVID time. I'll let you read these a bit, but, and again, this is being recorded if you want to go back and look at this a little more closely. But I think the take-home message here is that just even glancing at this, you see a lot of stuff about virtual stuff, things related to COVID relief, things related to any holistic volunteer activity that includes social distancing and mask wearing, COVID testing, helping people with virtual opportunities. And then there are even a few more here: virtual scribing, telemedicine, online volunteering, contact tracing. So a lot of things that, interestingly enough, are pretty timely. And I'll probably try to include results like these in one of our upcoming newsletters, but you're hearing this first hot off the presses. So here are a couple of links to begin information. The AAMC website I talk about a lot as a great resource for reliable, useful information. And within the section for aspiring students, you can look at anything from videos of other applicants who have compelling stories on to useful information about the MCAT or AMCAS, et cetera, et cetera. And then certainly your pre-health advising office with your advisor or advisors, and certainly the peer mentors. So I don't know if that prompts any comments or questions. I will say that we do know that the current cycle is still underway. Locally, Emory's last day for interviewing is February 26th, so that's just a couple weeks away. I touched bases with the folks at MCG. They were intending to interview through the end of February as well. Nationwide, many schools have often interviewed into April or March for sure, and some even into early April. And I will say that this year, interviews have been done remotely. I would be curious to hear from some of our peer mentors, if anybody's brave enough to tell some stories about what it's like to do a virtual interview. I can say from my side, I have interviewed for the medical school, I've interviewed for the pediatric residency, and I've interviewed for our pediatric nephrology fellowship. And I think I've been on one or two faculty recruit interviews via Zoom as well. And I personally think as an interviewer, the interview is fine. I've even done telemedicine with patients. So I find that in every circle that I've done interviews, as we've talked as committee members, as people who are helping to provide the information from the interview to the selection committees, we've all been prepped and discussed this idea of grace, giving people a little bit of slack, expecting that maybe the internet access will go out, not being terribly surprised by little flukes of background. I think many of you may have heard me give a talk on the virtual interview back in August. I think it was August or early September, maybe. I think people pay attention to the tips and cues on how to set the lighting so that they can be seen and that sort of thing. So I've been really rather amazed that the interviews have gone well. Sidebar, did anybody see the little video that's been going around, a cat filter? There was a court hearing where one of the attorneys had on his Zoom call, had a cat filter from the Snap camera, and he couldn't find a way to turn it off. So here he was as an attorney in a court of law looking like a cat. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth Googling cat video because it was all over the place yesterday. So anyway, just another little, so beware of the little Snapchat filters. So I'm gonna stop there for a minute. So any of the peer mentors that happen to maybe be in the current cycle have any just insights? You don't even have to tell us the school, but just maybe what it was like to be on the receiving end of the interview. And maybe we have no one that's applied or interviewed. Okay, well, the part that I've been very curious about is what it's like to be the applicant interviewing the interviewee on an interview day. And I've not gotten a lot of direct feedback from med school applicants. I have certainly, I have a new role. Last November, I took over the pediatric clerkship directorship. So I'm now the PEDS clerkship director for the School of Medicine. And with that said, I've talked to quite a few of the medical students who are in the midst of applying. In fact, my call at noon today, I was talking to one of the fourth years putting her match list together. They have to have their match list in like March 2nd. So people are frantically deciding where to put their match list. And most people have found that, you know, schools programs, I should say, have not just put them in front of a Zoom camera and had an interview. Most have done some kind of presentation that, you know, allows them to get a sense for what the program's like. Many have created almost mixers, virtual mixers. So you might meet with other applicants to the program, as well as maybe students or residents in the program, so that you get a feel for what things are like. I think the hard part is getting a gut feeling for a place and a space, maybe even the city, if it's a place you've never been. So that, I think, will remain to be seen as to how successful the whole cycle ends up being. I certainly have heard from everybody that's interviewed that they've spent a lot less money traveling places. And I think that is an advantage. And so we might see some hybrid interviewing. Maybe you do the interviews, individual interviews in this kind of a format, but maybe they invite a group of people to come to campus to get a tour, see the facilities, get a sense for what the city is like. But I think with what's going on right now and everybody just trying to get through this cycle, nobody is really even planning exactly what's going to happen the next cycle. But let's hope that by the time summer and fall roll around, more and more people will be getting vaccinated. And with that said, also a bit more herd immunity as more people recover from COVID itself. So hopefully things will start to loosen up a little bit more by then. So I guess getting back to Robert's question about differentiating, I think you can only do what you can do. And I mean that by being creative, looking for opportunities when they're available, reaching out to peers and friends and advisors about any ideas that they might have, looking within your community. I will say that things I pay attention to beyond my day-to-day healthcare experiences are, you know, hearing about the need that hunger seems to be an ever looming problem, and even more so now. You know, there's a lot of food insecurity. So I've heard people doing things like maybe not even delivering meals for Meals on Wheels, but going to the facility and helping to clean the equipment so that the people that are delivering get a little bit of a break. I thought that was quite a creative thing to do. People have found ways to do online tutoring, or, you know, keeping kids busy when parents are working from home while kids are doing school from home. You know, more and more schools have been going back in person, but I think those kinds of things can be interesting and fun and useful, and give you an opportunity to have that insight into what working with other beings is all about. So what other questions might people have? Or any interesting stories from local communities? Have people been hearing about people getting vaccinated? Anybody on the call have a vaccine yet? At least vaccine number 1, maybe 2? you all are too healthy and too young. I'm in the Moderna trial, which has been kind of interesting to be on the other side of a consent form for a change. I enrolled last summer and I thought I had gotten the placebo, but it turned out I'd gotten the active vaccine. So my second dose was September 14th. And I can say that last week I covered Eggleston for the week. And while I was still wearing masks and goggles and doing a lot of hand washing and picked up my N95 every day to have when I went into COVID patients' rooms, there was a nice sense of security to an extent, knowing that I've been vaccinated and that others around me, many others around me have as well. So hopefully we will continue to see more rollout of the vaccine. And then I noticed, even being around the hospital, there seems to be less stinginess about the PPE, if that makes sense. You know, I mean, we're still being mindful and careful, but it was nice to know we had supplies. And then just little things like if you go to the grocery store, like there's toilet paper and there's hand sanitizer and there are paper towels, you know, all the things that seem to be very scarce even 6 months ago seem to be there. So.
I actually got my second dose of Moderna this past Saturday.
I heard a very light, somebody got a second dose?
Yes, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
It's kind of muffled, but I can hear you, so.
I'm sorry, I think it's just my background's really loud. But yeah, I got my second dose this Saturday. It was very painful.
Yeah, I would say that of the folks I've heard that have had symptoms, most of them have been sore arms, low-grade fever, feeling. I don't know of anybody that's had like a major reaction or ended up in the hospital. I got an email a few Saturdays ago from a medical student who was going to have an oral exam on Monday, and he was telling me he had gotten the vaccine and over the weekend had been vomiting and having diarrhea, and he was vomiting so much he was hoarse. And this was Saturday evening, and my first question was, "Are you okay? Can I bring you some Gatorade and Tylenol?" And he has, his fiance was helping take care of him, and we touched bases through the weekend. By Monday, he said, "You know, I think I probably got rotavirus because my fiance has it now." Like, that makes much more sense. I had not heard of anybody having any GI symptoms. So not that anything's possible, but.
I'm getting my second dose next week. So fingers crossed I don't have any bad side effects.
Yeah, good. Excellent. I mean, if you can get it, get it. You know, I saw, I think this morning or yesterday, Moderna is going to start enrolling in a study children down to age 12. You know, right now the Moderna vaccine is under emergency use, so it's not even fully FDA approved, but it's for 18 and over. Pfizer has been down to 16, but Moderna is going to go down to 12. So that will help many of my patients who are, you know, adolescents with chronic illnesses and that sort of thing. So.
Hi, Dr. Batisky. So
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about vaccines, but I did have a question.
We're just talking about anything, Saeed. What's up?
About this upcoming cycle. So one thing question I had, and actually a lot of people who come up to me also had, was that you know, after March and when everything was shut down, for a lot of people they just have like a gap for a few months of doing nothing because everything that they normally did, you know, they couldn't do anymore, and it took them a while to, you know, adjust and to find something virtual. So they were just wondering, and I was wondering, like, how do you think the committees will perceive just the gap of doing nothing for a while?
You know, I think it's going to be viewed holistically, Saeed. You know, I mean, I've thought about this, and I cannot imagine any person that hasn't been affected in some way or another by this. And I even go back to, you know, I had a great niece born just before Thanksgiving 2019. And she's not local. You know, that's a tough time of the year in winter to travel. So I missed the opportunity to see her. And then COVID hit. So after all was said and done, I took a drive up to Virginia in late August, just going into Labor Day. And it struck me that even this infant does not know a life seeing people beyond her nuclear family without masks. And I thought that's just really kind of interesting. I mean, you can call it what it is, trying to be non-judgmental. It's just interesting. I see, you know, within my neighborhood, next door neighbor. So I've been spending more time at home, you know, here in my dining room in front of my computer. So I see things outside. And my neighbors have two girls. One's in kindergarten and one is in like preschool. And they both work. The husband and wife both work. And, you know, they've got these two kids that they have to keep occupied and try to keep in school while working full time. That's a challenge. And then I certainly see, you know, all of you who've, you know, been sort of kept away from campus, or if you are on campus in a very limited fashion. And then even our own medical students, you know, the third year here tends to start in early March. And many of you know I'm a small group advisor. So I have a group of first years that started in July. But even we back up last year, I had a group of third years who were starting third year, their clinical rotations. And they had orientation in the end of February. They started rotations in early March. And then 2 weeks into things, they were sent home. And, you know, I'm on the curriculum committee. We had emergency curriculum committee meetings. You never have emergency curriculum committee meetings unless you're in the midst of a pandemic. So people got very creative very fast at kind of finding some online elective time. I mean, these are people paying tuition, right? You can't just like let them sit around. So they finally were brought back into the clinical setting in like early June. So of course we've had to readjust what the clerkships are going to be like for 2 cycles because we can't have 2 overlapping classes. And then I got a new group of first years in late July. So during orientation, we would ordinarily have the entire class and all of us advisors in the front introducing ourselves to each other in one of the big lecture halls, room 110 over in the School of Medicine. Well, to be socially distanced, my small group of 10 students and I were assigned 110, you know, this big lecture hall, and we had to sit, you know, 6 feet apart and that sort of thing. In fact, we had a session like that yesterday. So ordinarily at this point in the curriculum, I would be meeting with my first years in person, you know, parts of 3 half days. And now we're down to 1 session a week in person, and we can be together no more than 90 minutes. So I think everybody's going to have gaps. Everybody's going to have pauses. And I can't imagine many people just doing nothing. So I bet you were studying. I bet you were adapting to a virtual learning format. I bet you were finding some other things to do. So I think everybody's going to find that there's going to be this major spotlight put on that time, and it's just going to be what it is. I don't think it's going to, I mean, at a large, high public health level, you know, the whole population was affected by this. I think at the individual level, it will be sort of assessed as to how did you handle this? What did you learn about yourself? How did you show your grit and your resilience to get through it, to get to the next semester? I think that would be my advice. Reflect on that time. What did I do during that time? And some of you I met maybe last spring finishing up composite letter meetings. And we talked a lot about, with all of those people that I finished out from mid-March into late April, early May, how are things going? What are you learning about yourself? Reflect on these times. And, you know, I do wonder, are secondaries going to change somehow? And people will ask, how did you spend your time in the pandemic? Maybe, maybe not. It's yet to be seen. I was hoping maybe somebody who interviewed could share you know, just a story from an interview where maybe that came up. But I think reflecting, understanding how we got here and how we might get out of here, and how your motivation was maybe adjusted by having to deal with this. Did it firm up your resolve, or did it push you away? I don't know. It could be either, or maybe somewhere in the middle. Maybe it didn't adjust it at all. But those would be the things I would be thinking about now, because they may come up either in an interview or on an essay, because we're all living through coping with it. And how did you cope? Your story will be unique to you. And that's, I think, what's going to help differentiate people. You know, the people that couldn't cope, that, you know, just couldn't imagine not having 47 more hours of shadowing, and so they sat in their room and cried in the corner, are going to be looked at a little bit differently than the people that went out and made something happen. So that, I think, would be where I would spend my time considering, knowing that everybody else that's applying, you know, nobody got put in a bubble and was excused from the pandemic. So. Anything else? Well, it's been a long day, and it seems like I'm looking in the chat here. I see no questions that have come up. So certainly reach out to your advisors, reach out to your peer mentors. We're always happy to try to answer the questions we have. I certainly do keep my ear to the ground to what's coming. Maybe we'll do this again later in the semester, just to kind of give updates, you know, when we sort of see how the interview season winds down.
Well, can I interrupt you, Dr. Batisky?
Sure.
I think someone wanted to ask a question. I think it was Meha, right? Did you want to ask a question?
Okay.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I just wanted to interrupt really quick and ask a question. I was wondering if you could speak on the importance of letters of rec, if it's different this cycle, if it's more important or maybe harmful to have any like generic letters of rec, and if it's different at all from previous cycles because of the
I don't think it's going to be any different. I think, you know, letters of recommendation are, they're viewed very interestingly in the sense that, and I would say that, you know, you letters of recommendation. And so in many ways, when you ask for a letter of recommendation, ideally you're asking somebody that knows you and that you know. And in the ideal world, you would ask somebody, can you give me a strong letter of recommendation? And then again, in the real world, as a faculty member, if I don't think I can write you a strong letter, I should tell you that. And so with all of that said as the ground rules, when I read a letter of recommendation, I know there's bias there. I know you've asked the person and I know the person's agreed. We don't just randomly get letters of recommendation, right? So with that said, I mean, I think those rules of engagement should not be any different now. In fact, you could make the case that somebody that knows you really well and has seen you struggle through some tough times and come out the other side might be able to help sort of share your story in a more compelling way than the professor that knows you got an A in the class and that's about all they know about you. I've seen lots of letters of recommendation from all kinds of places, and I I think at a place like Emory where there is much more connection between faculty and students, the letters are definitely more compelling than, you know, large state U, where you might be in a class of 500. So I don't think anything about the letters have changed per se, in that people like to see strong letters. And knowing that, you know, you kind of expect a strong letter if one isn't so strong, that's what stands out. Now you have no control over that except being insightful about asking for a letter from somebody that knows you. So does that help, Miha?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Let's see, there were a couple of other things. Do I have any insight on how Emory Medical School specifically has possibly changed its outlook toward applicants since the pandemic? Of course I do, because I work there. And it's really not that much different. I think, you know, Emory has always looked for, I mean, the one thing that has changed, and I think it's been changing. So this isn't like some new policy this year, but I have no doubt that this pandemic has in many ways shined a huge spotlight on the disparities in care that exist. When you look at sort of disparities in who's affected more severely or not, who gets care or not, and interwoven in that is the idea of diversity. So I will say that the School of Medicine, like the entire university, has paid much more attention to diversity. I would say even the last, I've been here almost 12 years, certainly the last 3 to 5. And I think we've doubled down on that in the setting of what's going on, because we see how we need to provide a diverse workforce if we're going to ever, you know, get a handle on these disparities in care. So I don't know that it's really changed dramatically, but it has certainly been an ongoing initiative for the medical school here. Somebody asks, are we likely to host a mock MMI? We probably will. I think, you know, that is something that's almost easier to do in this setting than it is in person, just from a logistical point of view. It's easier to sort of get people moving kind of virtually than it is in real time. So we'll likely do that as well.
And Don, can I interject for a second? So yeah, I just want to speak to the mock MMI question. We are having plans in the works. We're just working on the logistics and scheduling and all those things. But just keep an eye out on our Instagram account and the newsletters that go out twice a month. And so just know that that's coming.
Yeah, we're trying to be creative too. You know, we sorely miss having you around. I was in the office on Monday and Dr. Moley was there, and I ended up seeing Dr. Obrentz a little later in the afternoon, but we were all lamenting like, oh, yeah, to see this empty table out in the middle of the office is just so sad. And then I actually, a colleague I knew from Ohio State recently took a position here at Emory overseeing study abroad. And so I met up with him. We went for a big loop around the campus. And number one, I was lamenting, like, I want to travel. When are we going to get study abroad again? Not till the next academic year is the spoiler there. But in our big loop around campus, I bet I saw half a dozen people. And that just seems so sad. So we miss you. We miss you. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up unless there are any other final questions. I will say thank you for logging in tonight. Thank you for spending a little bit of your evening. I bet we have people maybe certainly from all over the country, if not all over the world. Enjoy Valentine's Day, which is coming up. We send and share our love from the pre-health office, and hopefully we'll see each other again. And stay safe, wash those hands. I see some masks on. Speak. That's great. And get vaccinated if you can. Thanks again. Good night.
Thanks, Dr. Batisky.
Sure. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Batisky.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, great to see you.
I didn't know if we needed to hang on for a sec, but if it's just you two, I'll hop off.
Yeah, I was just going to touch base. So
Okay.
good to
Sounds
see you,
good.
Robert. Well, it's nice to see you last week too.
Yes, for sure. We'll catch up, Dr.
This week before last. I was at Eggleston last week. That week just like wiped off the calendar. So
Yeah, we got to go on a
See you
walk.
again.
We'll catch up.
definitely, days are getting nicer now. So
Yes. All right.
see you.
See you all.
Bye.
Dawn, are you still recording? I forget.
I was going to stop it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay,
Oh,
so it's stopped now.